Hey, what's up you guys? Century Productions here, and welcome to the Watchtower series. If you guys are new here, this is just basically a deep dive of my toy photography. I show you my setups, how I pose my figures, how I light everything, where I get the ideas from, the inspiration, all that stuff. So we're starting off this episode with the Dr. Doom shot. In my previous Watchtower episode, towards the end, I kind of mentioned that I had a couple of cool, magic, sorcery kind of shots planned, and a Thor shot. We'll get to that Thor shot a little bit later on, but I was just kind of really juiced to get on with this Dr. Doom shot. I'm reading the 2020 Doom miniseries. Well, I guess it's not really a miniseries right now. I forget exactly who it's from. I'll put a little notation down at the bottom by who writes it, and I believe Salvador LaRocca is the one that does the art. I've always really liked his art. So when I saw he was doing the art, I was like, alright, I think I'm going to go ahead and read this. It's 10 issues. And dude, it's probably like one of the most badass comic book runs I've ever read. This and probably like Old Man Logan. Doom does so many cool Doom things in this book. He's riding a bear at one point. He's murdering hundreds of people. He's kind of like a hero at one point. You get a little bit of everything with this run on Doom. And it just kind of inspired me to take a Doom shot. So I'm working with the Marvel Legends Dr. Doom here. This figure came out way back in 2020. I believe I was at Comic-Con when they unveiled this figure or revealed this figure. And I remember everyone being really juiced, and then we finally got this figure. And I, to this day, still think it's like one of the greatest Marvel Legends figures that's ever been released. It's going to be very hard for them to top this figure if they do re-release it in the same deco. Working with the custom cape, I believe this is from GPS Lot on eBay. Got it a long time ago. It's kind of like a more dungy, dirty kind of cape. It's got some rips in it. And then the main idea behind this shot is he's like summoning, he's doing some magic basically. He's like summoning a portal or some kind of Doctor Strange looking kind of portal back here. This is actually a cutout. And what it is, I believe I looked on Google magic green circle, and this popped up, and it was a full circle. And in the past, I've done shots where I kind of taken a circle and cut it and kind of used it as a portal. So that was kind of the idea with what I was doing right here. It's just basically, it's regular printer paper. I've just printed it straight on to a 11 by 17 paper or poster or tabloid, I believe. I did this at FedEx Kinko's, and then I just I didn't super glue it. I glue sticked it to the back of some construction paper so it has a little bit more rigidness, a little bit more form, so it can kind of stand up. I just have an acrylic riser that's kind of tacked to the back of it so it can stand up. And the cool thing about this cutout is when I printed it out, it's kind of got this neon kind of color to it. And when you look at it on paper, it doesn't really look that cool, but when you really power some lights, we got some Ulanzi RGB color LED lights right here, and I hooked them up with the green and kind of pointed the green at it, and it creates this really awesome effect that really makes it seem as if this picture is glowing. And I kind of had an idea that's what it would do, but to be honest with you, I didn't really think it would come out looking this cool. Like, I'm looking through my viewfinder right now, and it really looks like it's glowing. Hopefully you guys get that effect as well on your side. If not, turn off the light in your room and or where you're at, and increase your brightness, because this thing is really glowing in this shot. It is so cool. Typically I'd have to use like a black light or something to get that effect, but I don't know, I think just the image itself, since it was kind of based off of like a neon kind of color emanating from the image, I think it just kind of helped with my shot here. So then I just got Doom. He's holding a book. I believe this is the book that came with the retro Dr. Doom, and I just got him standing there doing like some magic pose, I really like how this worked out. I had a more elaborate setup in mind for this shot. I was gonna have like a cliff edge and everything, but I just thought to myself, I was like, man, I got this awesome cutout right here. I think I don't really need much else. I got kind of like a castle kind of background back here. This is a base that I made for a dial way back in the day, like 3 years ago. It's the first dial I ever attempted to paint myself, and one of the last ones too, because I don't really make dials anymore, but I always thought I did a really good job painting this one. So yeah, kind of like a Latveria kind of feel to this shot. Lots of green colored lights in this shot, got some of those lights hitting Doom. We got some of them hitting the cutout right here. And then the main thing, I think that the real reason why this thing is really glowing like it is I have a light that's directly above here. It's not a colored light, it's just a very white fluorescent type of light. And it's just really lighting all this stuff up. And then in my camera, I've upped my contrast, I've upped my saturation, I have lowered my my ISO, and man, it's really giving me a cool effect. So let me show you guys a different angle, and maybe you guys can get a better idea of what I'm working with right here. Alright, so here's like a different angle of the whole setup. It's actually, in retrospect, it's really not that big of a setup. It's maybe like 1.5 feet across and maybe like 1.5 feet deep. Christopher Cantwell, that was the guy that wrote that 2019 to 2020 Doctor Doom miniseries. I guess miniseries is like 4 issues of comics, so I guess it's just a comic series. But yeah, Christopher Cantwell and Salvador Larroca. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, but man, awesome read. You guys should really read that. So here's the cutout, here's the figure. You know, we've seen this figure. This figure's been out for a very long time, but I did want to show you guys the kind of the construction or idea behind this cutout. You know, like I said, it's on 11 by 17 piece of paper, normal printer paper. It's not photo paper, it's none of that stuff. This is something you could just go right into a FedEx Kinko's or Office Max or something and print yourself, or maybe have them print for you. I've been printing a lot of my stuff myself recently because, you know, they just basically have self-serve printers right there. They're all laser jets, very nice ink and quality, and very cheap. For something like this, it's only like $1.50 to print out, which, you know, once you start printing a lot of them, it can kind of get a little pricey. But if you're going in there like me and you're printing out maybe 1 or 2 things, $1.50, I'll spend $1.50 on this all day long. Acrylic riser right here. There's little pieces of tack on the back here that just allows the image to be, or the paper to be attached to the acrylic. And then when I'm done with it, kind of like right here, I can just kind of move that off to the side, grab these little pieces of tack, and just kind of remove it, and it keeps the image, you know, protected. And I'm not taping anything, so I don't have to worry about any tape pulls or anything back here. But yeah, man, these cutouts are very, very simple. And you just make sure you glue it to something with extra strength glue sticks by Elmer's. I buy a 20-pack of them maybe twice a year. And I go through those, and I just make sure I put something really heavy on top of them for probably about 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours, and these really hold. You can bend them for the most part, and usually they don't get separated from the construction paper. But what a cool effect, right? This is really cool. You can also see kind of more of the setup right here, the base, the background. You know, like I said, castle kind of vibe. And then I had 2 more colored lights right here. These are also Ulanzi, but this one unfortunately kind of went off, you know, the battery. These 2 ones, the batteries on these, they don't really last that long. But yeah, really fun shot. So let's check out the finished image. Alright, so continuing the sorcery shots, or the magic shots, or I guess in this case the voodoo shots. I've got Brother Voodoo right here set up in like a little scene using a diorama I've had for a while. I believe at this point he's actually the Sorcerer Supreme, and he's being referred to as Dr. Voodoo. I guess he went by Dr. Voodoo for a long time. He's gone by Brother Voodoo. This is a figure that we got several years back from a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive set, the Book of Vishanti set, and it came with Dormammu and magic and a astral form of Doctor Strange, and I believe Hela was in that set as well. It was a cool little set. Then he was re-released again with the Dormammu Build-A-Figure Wave, and yeah, I kind of playing around with this figure. He's using the Bucky Cap mold. It's a very dated figure, but it's a very cool design. I've always thought Brother Voodoo was a very unsettling character and very creepy. So when I went to look at this shot, I wanted to do something that was like an uncomfortable kind of angle, an uncomfortable kind of setting. I went with this, you know, from the last shot we saw that I used that magic circle that I printed out. Well, I printed out several different kind of circles and was playing around with the idea of using them, and I don't know what I looked up to find this circle, but this is a very demonic circle. I can promise you I did not look up any demonic symbols or anything. I looked up like orange magic circle, and I believe this popped up, but it's giving me some very voodoo demonic kind of vibes from this shot. So that kind of fit the bill as far as the shot being, or I wanting the shot to feel uncomfortable. That's kind of why I'm shooting from this angle, shooting down. I have him holding on to his staff. He has this staff that has shrunken heads on it. I forget what the staff is called, but it's like his staff that he carries around. And basically I just kind of swapped it out because that one had like a blue tint on it, and since my shot is more orange and kind of fire kind of shot kind of vibe, I decided to give him the staff from M'Baku from the Black Panther wave. I think it fits pretty well right here. I was also playing around with the idea of a different head. I believe I used the Shield Agent head that came with the 2-pack about a year or two back, and it fits very well. But the main thing with Brother Voodoo that I've noticed with his character is he has like this symbol. I guess, is that the Vishanti symbol? I don't know. If you know in the comments, let me know. But he has this symbol on his head, so unless his head's pointing down, you can't really have his head pointing up and not have that symbol. And another thing about his design is, a lot of the time he has the short hair. So when he's Dr. Voodoo, I guess he's rocking this longer, like dreadlocks kind of hair. I wish Hasbro would make a more updated, or maybe a first appearance Brother Voodoo with better articulation. That'd be pretty cool. But I don't know. I have a feeling that he's just kind of, far down the list as far as characters that they're gonna pop out, but I've been proven wrong before. But I think it would be very cool, because I think his first appearance suit is actually much cooler. It's got more like a tank top, he's wearing pants, he's got the staff, he's got the short hair. Just very cool. Okay, this shot real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on all of this. This is basically the whole shot right here. You can kind of see all the lights. I got Panel Mini right here, Ulanzi kind of hitting that little cutout. Unlike the other cutouts, this cutout is not like neon, so I can hit it with the light, but it's not going to produce that same effect that we got with the Doctor Doom one. I think we just got really lucky with that shot. Then I've got another light right here. This is my garage kit. Always talking about the garage kit. I love this light. It's now stuck right here, but I got it kind of hitting the side of the diorama here, because if you kind of look at this diorama, I don't remember who made this diorama. I bought it on eBay, but they left like these pieces kind of sculpted in underneath the door and right here. And I don't know, it just kind of looked cool to me, like light creeping under the door. Like he's in some weird place doing some kind of voodoo type of magic, and his whole world around him is just kind of giving this essence of fire. I don't know, that was my idea behind this shot. I think voodoo's super creepy. I hope that's not insensitive or anything. The only thing I ever really remember about Brother Voodoo, I don't really know all that much about his character, but I remember New Avengers when Doctor Strange was hiding all the Avengers in the Sanctorum. They called in, Iron Man called in Brother Voodoo to try to see if Doctor Strange was hiding everybody in the Sanctum using magic, and they brought Brother Voodoo in, and he did like this seance type of thing, and it was super creepy. I remember reading that recently, actually, and whenever I think of Brother Voodoo, I always think back to that specific scene, and he ends up not even being able to find out if Doctor Strange was using magic to hide Cap's side of the Civil War team there, but I always think back to that when I think of this character. So yeah, this is the setup. It's kind of cool. Like I said, updated Dr. Voodoo or Brother Voodoo would be really cool. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody shoot this action figure ever. I'm sure people have, but me personally, I've never seen it. So I was kind of stoked when I pulled this out and kind of played around with it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to take a weird Dr. Voodoo or Brother Voodoo shot. So let's check it out. Alright, so I'm on the table with something a little bit different. I got all the magic and voodoo and sorcery shit out of my system. So I picked up this figure, which is the Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure Spider, or what I called the SPDR for years until I realized it was actually just kind of pronounced spider, just with a strange spelling. This, of course, is Penny Parker. We've seen her in Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. She has kind of a different mech suit build, but it's based on the same character. This is from the Edge of the Spider-Verse comic. I believe that was the first appearance, number 5. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that's basically what this design is based off of. It's actually based off of like these Japanese robots called the Evangelion units. I don't really know too much about them, but they look very familiar to me. They have the very long legs, robots. Not really super into all that stuff, but you know, I can appreciate a cool design when I see it. And if you look at this figure, you can definitely see that. This figure's kind of gone under the radar. You know, it's really poseable. Came out in 2018. It was actually a really solid wave from what I remember. It came with like Night Thrasher, Doc Ock, the first Doc Ock we got from Hasbro. They've more recently given us the retro one, which is a little bit better. But yeah, it was a very strong wave back then. And I remember getting this figure and not knowing anything about the character, and I just remember thinking this figure was so cool, so poseable. And you know, I was going through my bins of figures that I don't have on display because I got so many legends, not trying to brag, and I picked this figure up and I was like, damn, this figure is hella fun to play with. I love playing with this thing, super poseable. So I decided to kind of look into the character a little bit more, do some research. I think Edge of the Spider-Verse number 5 was its first appearance, and it was just a really cool character. Penny Parker, she kind of merges with a radioactive spider and has a psychic link between her, the spider, and the suit. Thought it was really dope. You know, she hasn't really appeared in too many comics, but I figured I'd, you know, give it a shot, or take a shot, and I kind of came across this reference photo and of him on the side of a building. You know, we've seen Spider-Man do this pose a million times, just leaning on the side of the building, and I thought to myself, oh, I could probably make this happen. So basically the whole setup here is I got my 11x17 comic book print just on a normal piece of paper back here. I got that tacked to the wall. I got my little rooftop diorama that I've had for a long time, and basically I have everything flipped on its side. That way I can lean this figure on its back and have it posed, and then what I'll do when I actually go to crop the photo is I'll just rotate it to the left, and it'll appear as if this figure is basically sticking to the side of this building, and I think it's going to be really cool. I did want to have it more posed up, especially from this back portion, kind of leaned up a little bit more, but obviously this figure is very strange in its design, so most of its weight is in this center section right here, so I wasn't really able to get it posed up in that position. I mean, if I really put some thought into it and kind of came up with a game plan on how to do that, I'm sure I could have gotten it situated a little bit higher up, but like I said, I was just playing around with this figure. I was like, oh, I bet you I could take a quick shot. So you know, I was just doing all the Dr. Doom and the Brother Voodoo and all that stuff. I figured this would be kind of a fun little change of pace as far as shots. Very simple shot. What I've noticed I've been taking a lot of shots of lately is just figures in different environments, and not like teams or anything, just individual figures. So, you know, we saw the Dr. Doom in Latveria, and then we saw Brother Voodoo in that scary dungeon or whatever, and now we've got Penny Parker here just on the side of a building. I think that's probably my favorite shot to take. It's just a single character in a different environment with a cool pose. And I think that's what I got right here. This is pretty much the whole setup right here, guys. There's not really too much going on. I got a Ulanzi right here. It's giving some light to the front of it. I've got my garage kit back there. It's giving some backlight to the head right there. I've got another Ulanzi, which is giving some backlight to the bottom of the knees. When I'm shooting shots like this and I have the nice little printed background back there, I like to make sure I have a lot of backlight coming at towards the figure, like towards the camera, because it really sets apart the figure from the background and gives it a nice little highlight around the legs, so you can really see like the curvature and the design and everything of the figure. So that's why I always hit with those backlights going towards the camera. Of course, I have my main light right here, which is giving a majority of the light to this section, and of course the front of this figure right here. So yeah, that's my quick little spider, or as I like to call it, SPDR. I just sound really dumb when I say that, but yeah, it's my quick little spider shot. Alright, so now I'm on to something kind of completely different. I was trying to stick with the theme of like magic and sorcery, but of course I ended up doing something completely different. So now we're working on a Thing versus the Hulk kind of shot right here. You know, these two guys have been foes for many, many years in the comics, so I'm really happy that I'm finally able to kind of you know, take a shot of them, you know, fighting each other. Typically, the Hulk has the upper hand on the Thing, but of course, we all know Ben Grimm is very durable, and he's always ready for a fight no matter what, and he can definitely take it from anybody, including the Hulk. But it's kind of cool here. Now we got Ben Grimm kind of doing the opposite of what the Hulk typically does to him, and that's punching the Hulk out of frame. We're doing the glass technique right here. Hopefully you guys can see the edge of the glass right here. Kind of have it propped up on two of my LED light strip desk lamps. It's just kind of holding up the glass. Since I'm not holding up a figure with this glass, all I have to really worry about is holding the glass up. I don't have to worry about any additional weight being supported on the glass. Typically, if I'm shooting with the glass being vertical like this, I'll use tack to put a figure up against it, but we're just using the Hulk cutout right here. Basically, the idea behind using the glass technique for this is so it makes the Hulk appear as if he's in thin air. And then, of course, we got the Thing posed behind the Hulk, you know, kind of doing a punching motion. And I think this really worked out really nice. You know, I found this Hulk cutout, or I guess this Hulk image, on Google. You know, sometimes I'll pull stuff from comic books, but sometimes I'll just be like Googling something and something pops up, and if it's a high enough definition image, I'll actually just pull that, and that's kind of what happened with this. I believe I was researching Namor. You know, before I do my shots, you know, I try to gather additional information about the characters if maybe I don't know too much about them, and you know, I don't even really consider that research. That's just me learning more about these characters that I love. And I was researching Namor, and there was this really classic image of Namor punching the Hulk, because we know that Namor has been, you know, Namor's pretty much fought everybody in the Marvel Universe at some point, including the Hulk, and Namor's one of the very few people that can actually go toe-to-toe with the Hulk and live to tell the tale, even though the Hulk usually ends up destroying everybody. But that was where this initial image came from, Namor punching him. I had the Namor figure, it just wasn't really pulling off the punch pose the way I wanted it, and I kind of went through a couple different characters that I could kind of use to really sell that punch of the Hulk flying off, and I think I went through Hercules, I went through Sentry, and then I kind of landed on this Ben Grimm Thing figure, and you know, I don't think I've taken too many shots of this Marvel Legends Thing. I believe this is a Walgreens exclusive from way back in the day, and I think it's still one of the best Marvel Legends figures that they've ever made. I think a lot of people would agree with that. You know, they've made 3 or 4 different things now, and this one, the very first one they made, is still the standout, the very definitive Ben Grimm. And he could do the pose, even though he's you know, very bulky and he's very limited on articulation. His sculpt, his paint, and you know, he can still do a lot of the poses. So even though he's a bigger figure, I think that's why this figure was so fantastic when it first came out. It's just because it could really, it was just very well rounded. It can kind of do everything. You guys can kind of see him back there. So yeah, that's kind of where I got to with this entire shot. Thought about it for a long time. You know, looking at the shot, I've now taken the shot and everything. I think I could have went around this cutout a little bit better with my black marker. You know, typically when you're doing a cutout and you actually cut everything out, you're going to want to go around the edges. Let me make sure this is focused. Go around the edges and really hit it with the black marker so that there's no white spots that pop out. But when you start getting into the territory of these like crazy angles and the ripped pants and all that stuff, it gets kind of difficult to get in there with a Sharpie, even a fine point Sharpie, and really cover everything in black. But hopefully that's just me kind of seeing it, and I'm hoping everyone else isn't really paying as much attention to all those little tiny details like I am. But overall, I think, like I said, I don't think anyone's going to be really seeing that. They're just going to be seeing this gigantic Hulk figure getting punched out of the frame. So our framing, you guys see all these lights and everything, and you're like, this looks weird. But our framing is going to be more like this. So of course you'll only see the Thing and the Hulk. But let's take a look at some of the lights I got right here just within this frame. I wanted a little bit of backlighting on this Thing right here. So I hit him with this Ulanzi RGB LED color light. Even though I'm using the white portion of that light, I got my panel mini right here to give a little bit more light to Ben Grimm. And kind of what both of these lights are doing is they're hitting the back of that cutout, maybe highlighting a little bit of it. It's the same kind of principle when you're trying to highlight a figure with light from the backlight. It kind of works sometimes with cutouts as well. And then I have another Lume Cube panel mini right here that's giving even more light to that Thing. I got to really make sure that that Thing is nice and well lit. Even though our focal point is going to be this Hulk right here, we still want to make sure we have enough light on the Thing so that when we have the Hulk in focus, you can still see a good portion of Ben Grimm in focus as well. And then way back there in the back, we got a little light on the ground that's providing this nice little underlighting for our shot. And what I've been doing lately is I'll have a light at the bottom, and then as the light goes up, kind of slowly fades and you get this nice little gradient in the background, which is really cool. And if you look at the source image, it's a blue background and it's kind of a gradient as well, so it kind of worked out really well for the shot. Alright, so here's kind of a different angle just so you guys maybe get a better idea of the setup. I mean, there's not really too much more to add here. You can kind of see more of the glass, the edge of it being right here. It's basically a cutout on a piece of paper. It's just tacked to the back of this glass using blue plumber's tack. And yeah, it's pretty simple stuff. I mean, it takes in order to get your cutouts at this level, these bigger cutouts with lots of little details, you really got to practice just doing the cutouts over and over and over again with an X-Acto knife. That's kind of the cool thing about this hobby is, you get really good at photography, but you also get good in other areas like cutouts, like X-Acto precision. It's very strange. And then like lighting and posing and all that other stuff. And then, once you do it enough, it kind of culminates and you can really get your shots looking cool. What else? I've got my garage kit right here that's providing light for this cutout. And the cool thing is I have that light pointing at the Hulk right here, and it's kind of blocking any additional light hitting the Thing figure, and it's also blocking a lot of light hitting the background as well, because like I said, we're trying to use that cool gradient, so it starts with a lot of light at the bottom, and then as it goes up, the light kind of dissipates, creating this cool kind of gradient. If you guys want to see how I'm holding up this glass, this is always kind of a tricky thing when you're trying to just hold up a piece of glass, because you kind of have to get a little resourceful, you have to use just like random items to kind of hold it up, because there's not any item that exists just to hold a piece of glass up for toy photography, or at least there isn't anything that I know that exists that does that. So I just kind of jimmy rigged some things. I got my two lights. The glass is kind of slid right between the middle of it. The glass doesn't really weigh that much, so either way it kind of hangs right here. I don't really have to worry about it, especially if I have it at a slight angle, about it falling down or anything. And once I'm done, I pull that cutout out and I, stash it away and make sure it's protected. This is a much bigger piece of glass. I have a couple different pieces of glass. Some are more thicker than others. Doesn't really matter. The main thing you have to do when you're working with glass is watch your reflections with your lights, which luckily for this shot I didn't have any. And then another thing that I see a lot of people just don't do, they don't clean their glass, man. If you're gonna use your glass for a glass technique action figure photo, you gotta get in there with some Windex and some paper towels, and then go back over with the microfiber cloth and just clean it. I mean, that really makes all the difference. That's why typically when I do my glass technique shots, you guys won't really see any smudges or fingerprints or any kind of debris that's on the glass, because I really take my time and go over it and make sure I clean it. Because when I get down to the shot, the last thing I want to be worrying about is debris or smudges or any of that shit when I'm taking my shot. I just don't want to deal with it. I want to focus on the shot, the lighting, the posing, all that stuff. I don't want to be focusing on the glass being dirty. So yeah, that's my Thing versus Hulk shot. I'm really proud of this one. I really like this. I think this is a cool cutout, so let's check it out. to wrap up this episode, I figured I'd do a little Spider-Man shot using the retro black suit Spider-Man and a cutout, of course. We started this whole episode with sorcery and magic, and I've mentioned that pretty much every shot. And we only did like 2 magic shots, and then the rest were just basically regular Century Production shots. And a couple cutout shots, which was nice to kind of get back into the cutouts a little bit. So yeah, this wasn't really magic themed episode, I guess is what I'm getting at. This was just another regular episode of the Watchtower series, all kinds of different kind of shots. Spider-Man, I think we had Dr. Doom, Hulk, SPDR, or Spider, I guess is what it's called. So yeah, I was just kind of having fun. That's just kind of how my brain works, I guess, when it comes to action figure photography. It's just like whatever pops into my brain is what I shoot. I try to stick to a theme, or if a figure comes out that I think is really excellent, I'll shoot that figure over and over again. But for the most part, it's just kind of a mixed bag. You just whatever comes to my brain, I shoot. So to this shot, this is kind of a cool shot. I've been sitting on this Aunt May cutout for a very long time right here, and I do think it is a little bit too big for Spider-Man's body. And I think if you really pay attention to that, if you haven't already thought that, I think she's a little bit big. I looked for the source for this cutout. I have a lot of cutouts, and I have a lot of images that are to be cutouts, or just images that are for inspiration. So trying to go through probably like 1,000 or 2,000 pictures trying to find the source of this Aunt May I found it quite challenging. I probably should organize my pictures and my sources a little bit better, but I kind of just go with the flow. I try to put all my effort into the shot and not organizing the sources and everything, and I just couldn't find this source. So even though it is a little big, I think it still was a good enough cutout to kind of put together a scene here. We got rubble in the foreground right here, kind of to cover up the ground so you don't really see the bottom of the 11 by 17 printed picture back there, and to give it a little bit more layering. And then through a couple of colored lights, we got our Ulanzi orange light hitting the back of Spider-Man, because if you look at our background, we do see that there's some buildings that have toppled, there's some fires on the ground. I believe this is from the Ultimates 2. I think I pulled this background image from the Ultimates 2 comic. And then if you really look to the back, right where I'm pulling this rock out, you can kind of see Iron Man standing right there in the back. But I kind of covered that up so you didn't see any of that. But I felt that this kind of worked as a background image. He's holding on to Aunt May, which, from the source, I can't remember if she actually died in this image, or if maybe she was just hurt. And I'm not even too sure if Spider-Man was wearing the black suit holding her, but it kind of, I guess he did, because if you look at his hand right here, he's kind of got that rectangle that's on the back of his glove. This just really worked out. I thought, looking at it from a cutout perspective, I could just kind of tack it onto the back of Spider-Man's hands right there, and I think it really worked out really nicely here. So yeah, we got wreckage behind him, wreckage in front of him, maybe pulled her out of a burning building or something, doing some kind of Spider-Man stuff. But lots of lights coming from the side and behind to kind of give him that glow coming from the background. And then I was initially going to have his head looking at the camera, but I felt it made more sense if he was looking at Aunt May right there. And yeah, I really like this cutout. I think it's a great cutout. I really love this art. I wish I knew who the artist was. Wish I knew where the source was, because if I had the source, I would have made this image a little bit smaller. But yeah, this was a fun little shot. I went with a really low f-stop and focused on his head so that the background was blurry. I think I went with 4.5 for f-stop. So the really in focus thing for this is going to be his chest and his head. This cutout will be a little bit out of focus, and the background will be a lot of out of focus. And of course, this rubble in the front is going to be out of focus too. That kind of works perfectly for this shot, because when it comes to cutouts, I try to make the cutout out of focus if I can, unless it's the focal point, just to hide any inconsistencies on the cutout. Even though I think this cutout's really good, just it being just a little out of focus kind of helps sell the illusion of the image, like he's really holding her. And another thing I did want to mention before I wrap everything up here, I'm not going to show you guys another angle or anything. This is pretty much everything you need to see for this shot. Obviously it'll be cropped like this. But another thing I did want to mention with this shot that I found really interesting is typically when I shoot a shot, I'll kind of think of a white balance I want to use, whether it's a cooler setting or a warmer setting or maybe a neutral setting. When I looked at this one, I thought of a warmer setting because of the fires and the background image and everything like that. But just to kind of make sure I went full circle, I chose the cooler setting. And something really interesting about the shot that I found was this shot worked on both the warm setting and it also worked really well on the cool setting. So as you can see on this setting, it's a little bit cooler and it kind of translates the nighttime maybe a little bit better. I think I still like the warmer setting a little bit more, but I just found that the background image in this cooler setting really popped a little bit better than the warmer setting. And typically with shots, it's either like the warmer setting that I like or the cooler setting. There's not really like shots where I can kind of flip-flop between both of them and I'm like, oh, they both kind of work. So I found that kind of interesting for this shot. The whites really pop on this shot, but I did want a little bit of that warmer kind of feeling, and especially if this background image, as you can see, is kind of like a red sky and everything. So yeah, so this is my little black suit Spider-Man dead Aunt May shot, or dying, or passed out, I don't know. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching the Watchtower series. We're going to get right back into it for next week's episode. I'm not really too sure what I'll be working on for that episode. Like I just explained, kind of I guess whatever comes to mind. I did get the new Spider-Man No Way Home 3-pack with the Raimi Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, of course the regular Tom Holland Spider-Man. So I'm anxious to maybe shoot a couple things with that. But yeah, in the meantime, check out my Instagram. See more behind the scenes and the final shots, of course. And I just really appreciate you guys watching. And if you have any ideas for me to shoot, maybe some ideas for some settings or some characters you might want to see me use, let me know. Put it in the comments below. In the meantime, let's check out this shot. Thanks, guys.
That's crispy.